So we're going to go ahead and get started and begin our first podcast, which is a partnership between SHFM and those of you on the Emerald Sustainability Accreditation. We have a joint venture here that we're doing to bring up some key topics, and we have a fantastic guest here at our Emerald Brand headquarters, Rob Gordon, who is the SHFM, the Society for Hospitality and Food Service Management's president. And he is also the vice president of workspace services for American Express globally. So he's got a very, very, very big position and a lot of insight into what's happening. And we've talked a lot about this over the past months within the SHFM community, within the Emerald community, and there's so much happening. And it seems like it's changing every month. It's so dynamic, and it was 2 weeks inside, and it turned into a month, and now here we are, month 5. And so, we felt like it would be a great thing to have Rob on and kind of have a conversation. We didn't script this, so you all are aware. This is off the cuff, but good conversations and good, honest, transparent conversations that we want to have. We have a great diversity of people on here, Rob. I think we got a nice grouping of people from all around the country. I think we also have our representatives in the UK that are on, so it'd be nice to hear. I'm sure it'll be nice for them to hear some of the things that are happening globally. So I think I want to start. The first question that I have written here is, you guys, American Express, have made very, very strong commitment during this, which is fantastic, ensuring no layoffs and furloughs and whatnot. And now, obviously, some parts of the globe are reintegrating faster than others. So in your global role, how do you see now different areas coming back? What are your thoughts on some of the different regions of the world?
Great. So first, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm really glad to see that the podcast, I think this is a really cool idea. In essence of time, jumping right into it, I would say that as we look around the globe, I joked when I first started this process, it was kind of like a little like whack-a-mole, that everything was moving at a different pace, and it is still doing the same. But where we've seen a little bit more pain, it's come back around a little bit better too. So in areas in Europe, we're starting to see a lot better movement. We're actually talking about getting our Frankfurt office opening up in the short term, New Zealand and some of the Asia Pacific areas as well, that we're seeing a lot better movement. We are targeting some places, other areas in Europe and in the UK. The US has been a little bit of obviously it's taken a step back. Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing, just to go back to the original statement, was, the executive committee of American Express has been fantastic. And I would say one of the biggest things is in times like this, leadership really is important. And one of our leadership principles is we say leadership demands courage. And the leadership team and the executive committee at American Express has been fantastic throughout communicating, sharing. And I think the biggest thing was that they talked about no COVID-related layoffs, because they want to take care of their employees. And then the big thing I would say is, as we talk about getting back into the offices, we've never made a push to be rushing to get back in. We are leaders in many different things, and we always want to be leaders. But the conversation is, this is not an area to be a leader. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you do things right and proper. So looking at it globally, where the abilities are, and we're probably going to be a little bit more apprehensive or behind whatever the current guidelines are. So we'll have a little more stringent guidelines before we go back into the building, and the process by each area that has to actually apply to the executive committee to reopen. Mm-hmm. So we've seen some better options. It's been working for us, but we've put a lot of effort around, or the executive committee put a lot of effort around, of making sure if we are opening up, we're opening up safe. So the areas that we talk about are areas that have had better proof points and have had better success rates.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. And in the opening up safe part, and you and I were chatting a little bit too about, some of the CDC guidelines. The CDC came out, and this is very food service related and facilities related. So I think it really applies to everybody that's listening. They came out with these guidelines, which were actually beneficial to groups like us, like Emerald, in terms of them looking, not mandating, but recommending sustainable packaging and single serve and things like that. But they're not requirements. They're guidelines, which is like a very gray area. And it's like, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think my concern about it is them being guidelines as opposed to requirements. It lacks accountability and creates the opportunity, the disparity in how you interpret some of these rules. For the most part, I know in our world, we've followed CDC guidelines. It's been important. And we've really, had made major efforts. I was actually in the building yesterday and was incredibly impressed in New York City about how the space looks, with signage and just how we're managing the space. So, that's one thing. But, for us, the hope is what I would have liked to have seen, and maybe was that the guidelines would then turn into something from Department of Health, like for dining
DOH.
services.
Yep.
So the DOH standards would then come in because there's an opportunity for that group to be accountable on situations like that. And listen, I think one thing for us at American Express, 2 of the 3 areas that are kind of hotspots now, being Florida and Arizona, are 2 big areas for us, and areas that we, our service center areas, areas that we would like to get back up and operating.
Sure.
So trying to get through those processes and settle in. But one thing I would say at American Express, at least for our organization, is we've always had, obviously a focus on safety of our employees, and even to the dining operations, on that we've always been very high level on safety and sanitation. So a lot of the precautions that we take are maybe some are heavy-handed, you'd think, but they're always been in the effort of safety of the colleagues.
Yeah, interesting. So I think this is a question. I mean, companies like ours want to know, supply channels want to know, is because it's been going on now for months, and there's so many vendors and supply channel partners that rely on people going to work. I mean, I didn't even realize how large that grouping of supply channel folks is until this happened. When the heck do you think people are going to actively? I mean, is this going to be a permanent thing? Fortunately, like companies like us, we pivoted, we moved into retail spaces. We have different divisions of our company. It's great. There are companies that completely rely on people going to work. And what do you think? Where do you think that goes?
So, putting my SHFM hat on, and partly an American Express hat, but for the SHFM hat for now, what I've learned is there's a bunch of different constituencies that are in this group. There are a lot of groups that are large organizations that could somewhat weather the storm. Some have been able to pivot. Some are dedicated predominantly on event business. That is really has dissipated completely. So I think that's part of the issue, is that each one is going to be looked at differently. The big thing that we've said that I could share about, like from an American Express, we've looked at from opportunities and savings as we've been going through this, and this has obviously been longer than we've predicted. It's, once we start putting people back into buildings, even at 10 and 25% rates, the save's complete. It's not like you move up at 25% and then at 25 you're spending a little bit more. Once you start turning buildings back on, HVAC, all of those types of things, you're going to start actually, a lot of that savings is going to go away. We've kind of figured out almost 75%. So then you start getting people to get back into the offices and get back to work. I think economy personally will recover somewhat quickly, but they just have to have consistent measures and not regress. And it's funny, when we were talking originally, I was expecting to be opening up Arizona and Florida. As we stand today in the U.S., probably the New York office, as far as, anticipated dates, has been holding steady. So that's kind of where we're looking at it. But there's more to come, certainly more to come. And I would say that people sometimes forget about in these businesses that, kind of almost like a feeder business. So it's not just the restaurant or the cafe. It's the fishmonger, it's the meat vendor, it's the grocer, it's all of these other organizations.
Pantry companies that service vending companies.
Pantry, vending, in a restaurant, you have the linen company, the flour, like people are there's a lot that goes into it, So I think that to me, that's what we're looking to do. And I would say one of the discussions we've been having, and I'll share this in credit Frank LaRusso, as a conversation we've started, is the B2B2C. And I think you guys have done this well. And maybe I would ask you, from a business perspective, there's always been a business to business relationship, right? So now that business to business started to extend to the end user, the customer, which we love seeing because it adds a value. And we've been working on that with some different avenues through our building, but I think you guys have been doing that really successfully and kind of taking a pivot. So, I'd be interested to hear, more about how, and I think a lot of the business owners on the call would probably be interested to say, hey, you know what? Unprecedented times, but I got to survive.
You got to survive. Yeah. I mean, look, we're family-run business, and a lot of these, the larger corporations out there have a ton of cash on hand. They could last a year, year and a half, some of them, without any business, because they've got that capital. And when you're in a position where you're in a family-run entrepreneurial type of business, Yeah, oh yeah, you've got to take action. You can't just sit there and hope. And I tell you, like as a young person in business, as horrible as this whole thing has been, it has taught me more in 4 months than I've learned in the 13 years being in business. And it teaches you a lot of different things. And one of the biggest lessons that I have to give credit to my father who taught me is it's not what you do in the beginning, it's not what you do in the end, it's what you do in the middle. And we had to react, we had to move quickly, very quickly. And you know, moving into retail, moving into different, and we have a Jan Sand division, thank God. But the retail side, you know, we've done in a very big way, and for the long term, not just for the short term. And who knows? I mean, in 2-3 years, in a year, in 6 months, who knows? That could represent a very big portion of our business. But we learn a lot, and if you sit still, that's when you get into trouble. But we executed, our team executed. We have a fantastic group of people, and yeah, I mean, sure, if you didn't do that, yeah, you got, and then you got to come up with innovations for when things do come back. So in your existing business, so like what packaging innovations do you come up with? What are people going to want? They're going to want safety. They're going to want health and wellness. They're going to want, so we've been doing a lot of action in the last couple of months, really building that up. And then also, I don't love the term pivoting, but we did,
Right.
And we executed, and thank God. So it's a good question. It's a good point.
So I'll throw one out if you don't mind. So for us, and just kind of like we're looking at like going into the future for our services in general, and I'm not just saying dining, just in general, the services that we provide. We're looking at a focus on probably smaller but better from a footprint, because that's just kind of the way that the world is going. So the two things we're focusing on are convenience and technology, and I think that that's something that has started to become, and I'm sure I'm not the only ones that are saying this, but you're in the business of convenience packaging and those types of things. As you see things coming out, because I can tell you from a sustainability perspective, organizationally, we still have the same focus on our commitment to sustainability.
Right.
Full well knowing with the amount of people that the disposable portion of that business and due to the convenience model. So just kind of, I'd like to get your take on how you're looking at that, because I think it's direct effect in your world, especially not just the convenience piece, but the sustainable efforts.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things we've done is we're coming out with a major push with our Made in USA products. And we think that the supply channel, I think you can speak to this in food and in your world, in dining, localization, traceability. Where is the product coming from? What's in it? We're actually learning that in the retail space, because consumers are asking us now that we're in tens of thousands of stores. They want to know those kind of things. And so we're pushing a lot of the innovations that we're coming out with to be made in USA. A lot of companies, I'm looking around, a lot of companies are sitting still. They're not investing in innovation. They're not, and whether they don't have the capital means to, or whether they're just sitting back and not innovating, but that's a big mistake. And it's a very big mistake to make. And so, yeah, we're all over that. We've gotten a tremendous amount of data and feedback back from companies in food service and facilities that have come back to say, hey, this would be a great idea. Did we put time in R&D into every idea? No, but we did pick several that we're going to be really pushing. And at the end of the day, you've got to do that, because if you sit still there, you're just gonna get run over. I mean, that's just
What's the old saying? Publish or perish, right?
Publish or perish. Yeah, that's great. I love that saying. Love that saying. So we got 2 minutes left, and I want to. Good question, by the way. Really good question. I want to.
Every once in a while, I come up with one.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. Made me think for sure. But it was. It's true, and sometimes you don't realize like when this is all going on, how much you're doing and what your company has done. But yeah, you gotta be fluid. So on the real estate space, a lot of questions people ask me even before this, like a lot of questions like, do you think you could ask Rob about commercial real estate? Like, where's it going? Like, I read a lot about this hub and spoke model now, where they're going to have centralized locations, but they're going to be, smaller than they traditionally were. Then they're going to have the spoke model, which will be more smaller locations in the suburbs. You have this tremendous migration of urban folks moving to the suburbs. What are you doing with the space? How are you reshaping? Are you reshaping the space? What are your thoughts on that?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess go back into the conversation was before, it's a smaller but better mentality. And coming in the corporate real estate team and working in the real estate department, a lot of what drives us is talent pool. And typically you want to be around where talent pool is so people can get to markets and all of that. Well, I think the model is changing a little bit more now too, because you don't have to literally be in market specifically with this virtual mentality. So we are still an organization that does, in office, and, take aside the safety measures that we're putting in, we have customer care professionals, and there is productivity, and there's a bunch of those things that have to be done on premises. So we are anticipating, still obviously we're not doing anything on that, but the one piece is, as we talk about, and I think a lot of organizations are very similar as they talk about, that they have no COVID related layoffs. And you've seen a lot of that from big organizations. Well, with that along comes typically hiring freezes too as well. So your real estate, your head count is probably, I don't want to say frozen, but static.
Yeah, somewhat neutral, yeah.
So it gives you a little bit, so from a planning perspective, I think that's a good thing. So you can plan in a good way. From the corporate real estate, it's an area that I'm concerned to see where it goes. Typically, when you go into a city, you can judge how the city's doing by cranes.
Right, the building, yeah.
That's what's going to be, to see what happens. And I don't know a ton about what's going to happen in the co-working spaces, but with safety and those types of concerns where everything was so nice to commingle and collaborate and have those abilities, it's going to be interesting to see how people look at that. I know we've been having some discussions about how we look at that. Number one, is there a need for those extra spaces when people have the rollover spaces?
Right.
And then the other part is, can we bring that in-house? Do we have the space now that we have more people virtually? You have a lot of people in HR teams that have no problem working virtually. Real estate teams, operations teams, our customer care, they're definitely going to be on-site people. We'll reduce by percentage some, and we're going to be practiced. And a lot of this work from home planning is also contingency planning because, hey, never thought this would happen. Got to be prepared in case it does again.
In case it does again. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I definitely think that we covered a good amount in 15 minutes. I hope that our attendees valued some of that feedback that we could bring, and want to just thank everybody for attending. This is our first podcast. We may do more depending on the feedback we get. So if you liked it, we could look to continue it. And with that, we wish everybody well. We wish everybody safe, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
And I wanted to quickly, if I got everybody, to just thank the Emerald family for helping and support us. And then they've been a really great supporter of SHFM. They're legacy members from Ralph's dad to Ralph. And not only that, but just all of the support that comes with it. And just wanted to make sure that I said thank you to you guys as well. And it was really nice to have to be hosted, and certainly an honor to be asked. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.